During most of the 2000s, particularly during like my teen years, I was never really into indie rock. Mostly the modern stuff, mainly because like it kind of associated too closely with emo. Stuff like Dashboard Confessional and Fall Out Boy and stuff like that that I'm not a total fan of. Throughout like my teen years, I was mostly into metal, hard rock, and classic rock and all that shit. But like it wasn't before. It wasn't until a few years into the 2010s that I actually learned to appreciate it a lot more than I thought that I ever would. See, I would during 2000, like towards the end of 2012, I started to kind of slack on buying like metal albums and whatnot, and I started to get into more modern rock and more like 80s new wave. And then during like late 2013, I started, see, I would go to the library and there would be like a bunch of CDs, of different genres. There's the rock, jazz, pop section, and I would always, rent whatever decent stuff they had and just put it on my iTunes playlist. Yeah, I like to do things the old-fashioned way. So during that time, I started, renting, stuff from different indie bands that I now love more than I ever did. Several Death Cab for Cutie albums. Bright Eyes, Mumford and Sons, Iron and Wine, uh, Calexico. There's also know, Band of Horses, the Decemberists, the Silver Sun Pickups, TV on the Radio, Guster, Gomez, although they're more 90s as well. And like a ton of other stuff along those, Arctic Monkeys and Franz Ferdinand, and a ton of other good stuff. I really started to get into it a lot more, than I did during like my teens, and like I love it now. I don't just listen to metal and hard rock for the moderation anymore because because the more I listen to indie rock, the more I felt as if I was so shallow in my musical tastes during like my teen years, and I felt it was during my 20s I felt it was time to expand my horizons. And one indie rock group that I feel as if don't get as much appreciation as they should have is this band. Although I think many like the most like dedicated indie rock fans pretty much recognize this band because they've had, a little bit of recognition during the time they were still together. This is a band called Rooney, and this is their self-titled album. This is actually their first album, released in 2003 from Geffen Records. So they I'm pretty sure they've a lot of their stuff were probably on Q101, and or maybe like on XRT. And plus, aside from that, XRT, it plays a lot of like indie and adult alternative stuff, and I listen to XRT a lot, so I figured get into it a lot more. So anyway, Rooney has is like a indie rock pop, kind of emo, but not totally emo. They were actually more. They're actually more in comparison to early British invasion groups like the Kinks and the Birds. As you can see on the back, they kind of resemble like a a 60s British invasion band with the hairstyle and whatnot. And I think it's actually kind of cool. So I actually really enjoy this band. I love, their sound. They're a bit similar to like, like the bands that I just mentioned. You know, they have during like their popularity, they've gone on tour with bands like The Strokes, Weezer, you know, Travis, Keane, and like some other bands that Jane's Addiction as well. You know, they went on tour with them, and so like the main single of this album is "I'm Shaking," and I'm pretty sure that during their popularity that that song has been on like the radio. Probably not mainstream radio, but I'm pretty sure like Q101 back in when they were playing mostly like alternative rock and not as much pop rock as they do now. Um, and I'm pretty sure that this is the kind of stuff that you would have heard at like a certain clothing store at your local mall during like the early 2000s, like particularly 2004. I remember going into a clothing store at a mall in Schaumburg, and like it was like and they were playing like mostly like mostly modern like indie rock on like the overhead radio. Like one time I went in there, they were playing "Rollover DJ" by Jet, and the other time I went in there, they were playing "Take Me Out" by Franz Ferdinand. So more than likely, one of their songs off this album you probably heard in a store, at the mall or whatnot. And like they also had a cameo. They appeared on an episode of the OC. This band. It was a pretty decent show. I mean, it wasn't really my cup of tea back when I was younger, but I think maybe it's time for a revisit. But anyway, but that still did not get them as much recognition as it should. Although, some bands that have appeared in movies and TV shows don't get as much recognition as they should have. For example, the band Southern Culture on the Skids. They appeared in the very first scene of I Know What You Did Last Summer, but they're still immensely underrated. I mean, they haven't been together in a while, so I don't know if they're still together or not. But anyway, I'm throwing off track here. But I really enjoy this album. This is actually my sister's old copy. She's not a CD collector anymore. As a matter of fact, she never really was as much as I am. The other songs on this album are pretty good. The song Daisy Duke is actually pretty good. It's not a single, at least I don't think it is. And there were, Stay Away is good. This whole album is just, fantastic. And like, nowadays it brings back that kind of early 2000s nostalgia whenever I listen to any song on it. Like whenever any song by it comes on when I'm playing my iPod on shuffle on my stereo. And like and since I have like see the truth is though, I revisited this band in like winter 2016. During the days when I was catching up on like a lot of indie rock groups. And so and I figured, this would be a good add to the collection. I figured, I put this back on my playlist and just, enjoy it. And I do still, I still love this band. I love, the old. They had released like 3 other albums after this. But as far as, I'm concerned, as far as most like loyal indie rock fans are concerned, this is pretty much their most accomplished album. I would pick this up if you're into bands like Phantom Planet or Jet or like any other, or any of the British invasion bands that I mentioned. Because, like I said, this band is partially influenced by those by that genre. I would give this a go. If you can find this, used somewhere at a thrift store or half price books or just like a normal record shop, I would give this a go. If you're into lots of good indie music, definitely check this band out. Or you could just, look up a few songs on YouTube, or just, add it to your Spotify playlist if you don't feel like spending too much money. But I own a copy, and I don't think I can ever give this away. That's all there is to it. Rooney. Their 2003 self-titled debut album released through Geffen Records. And that's it. Thanks for watching.